Welcome to the latest episode of Beatin' and Bangin'. I'm your host, Kyle Dalton. In today's video, we're going to discuss several stories from this week leading up to today's race at Gateway, including the massive penalty on Chase Briscoe and its significance in the growing battle between NASCAR and the teams. Denny Hamlin's future with Joe Gibbs Racing is coming into focus, and a story I uncovered over the weekend while watching qualifying from Gateway, and it's not a good look for NASCAR. First, let's talk about NASCAR dropping the hammer this week on the number 14 Stewart-Haas Racing team for not altering an existing part similar to what's happened in the past, like with Hendrick Motorsports and the Louvers this season, but instead producing a completely new counterfeit part. NASCAR officials made the discovery after the car was brought back for inspection to the R&D Center following the Coca-Cola 600 on Monday. Inspectors found an engine panel knockaduct in the SHR car that was not in compliance with the sports rulebook and penalized Briscoe 125 points and the team 125 owner points, while also docking 25 playoff points. Crew Chief Johnny Klossmeyer has been suspended for the next 6 races and fined $250,000. This is the first L3 punishment handed out by NASCAR and is a notable escalation in what the teams are trying to get away with, and subsequently the sanctioning body's heightened response. All of it reminded me of a press conference in 2021 where COO Steve O'Donnell talked about penalties with the new car.
Our message is clear in terms of the direction we're going to go, and I think if you want to use an example of, engines and what you normally don't see as far as any challenges around engines from an inspection process, that's the same thing we want to view as the car. So penalties will be ratcheted up. We're hopeful that we don't have to do that, but we have put everybody on notice that, this is a culture shift. This is why we went to this car as well, and we expect everyone to get in line. We're all going to learn together. But we've certainly had this part of our dialogue all the way through designing the car. But certainly everything's on the table in terms of playoff points, and we want to make sure that the penalty matters if we have to go that route. And again, we're hopeful we don't, but we've always got to be prepared.
Just a couple of things of note on O'Donnell's remarks. He mentioned a culture shift and making sure that the penalty matters. There's definitely been a culture shift, as evidenced by the number of penalties in the last 2 seasons. O'Donnell said penalties would be ratcheted up, but they hoped they didn't have to. The number 14 team's penalty this week is definitely ratcheting up because teams aren't falling in line as NASCAR expected. There is currently a battle between the teams trying to see what they can get away with and NASCAR trying to keep everybody in check. There's no doubt it's an uphill climb as the governing body is trying to overcome a mindset of innovation and creativity in the garage that's been practiced for 75 years. It's going to be interesting to watch the cat and mouse over this season and the coming years to see if NASCAR can finally get the teams to fall in line. Moving on to our next story, Denny Hamlin made headlines on Monday after Chase Elliott intentionally wrecked him in the Coca-Cola 600. Hamlin talked about the incident on his podcast and even admitted this weekend at Gateway that he's still feeling the effects of the big impact. But there's also some good news coming from the number 11 camp this weekend. Earlier this season, it was reported that the contracts of Hamlin and FedEx with Joe Gibbs Racing ran through 2023. After what happened last year with Kyle Busch, it's understandable how fans of Hamlin might have concerns about his future with the organization. Adam Stern of the Sports Business Journal reported on Friday that the 3-time Daytona 500 winner's future with the only organization he's raced with in the Cup Series appears to be coming into focus, with the longtime business partner agreeing to maintain a sizable presence at least into the 2024 season. And finally, our last story happened yesterday during qualifying at Gateway. When NASCAR fans watch the Truck Series, they have different expectations for what is considered the entry level or bottom tier of NASCAR. They recognize that the less experienced drivers will make mistakes while working to improve their craft, and they'll presumably do so at the slowest speeds found in the 3 series. However, that's not what happened this weekend at Gateway at all. In fact, while watching the Cup Series qualifying session, I kept looking at the truck qualifying results in disbelief. It just didn't make sense. The Cup Series drivers are considered some of the best in the world. With that big title comes big responsibility, as in the ability to wheel the fastest cars in NASCAR. But at Gateway, that didn't happen. Let's take a look at what I'm talking about. We'll start with the Truck Series and its top 10 finishers in qualifying. The 10th place finisher was eventual race winner Grant Enfinger, who recorded a time of 32.976 and a speed of 136.46 miles per hour, 10th place. That speed would have earned Enfinger a 5th place result in Cup qualifying. Interestingly, 3 truckers had speeds faster than Cup pole sitter Kyle Busch. Ty Majeski won the truck pole with a speed of 138.168. The top 5 truckers all had speeds in the 137 and change neighborhood. Only Busch and Ryan Blaney were in the 137 bracket in the Cup cars, and just barely, at 137.153 for last week's winner of the Coke 600 and 137.187 for Rowdy. This can't be what NASCAR wants. It's not a good look, plain and simple. What's interesting is this isn't the only time this has happened this year. It also happened at Daytona and Martinsville, albeit on a much smaller scale. What does NASCAR have to say about this? We're going to ask. Stay tuned and we'll follow up on this story. Let me know what you think about the surprising speed differences between the trucks and Cup cars. And what do you think about the other big story with what happened this week with Chase Briscoe? Do you like NASCAR laying down the law and keeping the teams in check? Or would you prefer them to allow more creativity? All right, guys, thanks as always for watching the channel. If you liked what you saw, please let your NASCAR buddies know what we're doing at Beatin' and Bangin'. And if you want to read more stories like this video, be sure and check out my articles on sportscasting.com. See the link in the description. Hope to see you in the next video and have a great rest of your day.